Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to the eBike Lite shootout. We are really excited about this series. We've got 11 really impressive bikes going at it. This is gonna be the first review in the series. It is the Amflow PL. It is a beast of a bike, and we would like to thank Klamath Falls, the Running Y Resort, for hosting us, as well as Outdoor Research, Ride Concepts, and Schwalbe Tires for making this series possible. So, without any further ado, let's get into this absolute beast of an e-bike. Let's go. It's hard to see any new bike release or launch come out without dozens of comments of people saying if it doesn't have the DJI Avinox motor, it's outdated. And I gotta say, after spending, well, we've spent several weeks on this drive unit and bike now, I kind of would say I agree. This thing's a game changer.
The hype is hyped up enough. It's real. Like, I still remember the first time in person seeing this bike take off with our camera guy with a bag uphill, like roosted us going by on like a steep hill, and was like, what did I just witness? Like, okay, let me get it, let me try. And the moment that power kicked in, starting in like 10th gear up a grade, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's insane. Obviously, longevity, durability, you know, how long they're gonna last is only time and having enough of these in the marketplace is gonna tell. Yeah. But we have definitely done our best to beat on this thing.
And the heat management, like, so far, I've been very boost happy. Like, get that 30 seconds. We did a hill climb challenge, and this bike was almost a minute faster on a 2-minute 15-second. I did a 121 versus a 203 is the fastest. Yeah. And repeating that boost up a really steep grade. Initially, there was no heat issues, which was my big question, right? Like, oh, is it gonna have a thermal override or anything like that?
Yeah. So this drive unit has 105 Newton meters of torque with 850 watts of peak power, and this slim down tube is hiding an 800 watt hour battery, making it the largest in our shootout this year. So it is the most powerful, the largest battery, and frankly, one of the most impressive, I would say. I don't want to give anything away just yet, but because the bike's not perfect, but from a battery range and power perspective, it's pretty easy to say.
Position's great.
It's unmatched. So there are a few different power modes that you can easily navigate through. And I would say one of the more notable features is that it has a 30-second super boost, whatever you want to call it.
Warp speed.
Yeah, you hold the plus button down here, and essentially you will see a little, you know, light here on this awesome 2-inch touchscreen display, and you'll see 30-second timer pop up, and then it starts ticking down, and then I think at 5 seconds it starts to beep to let you know you're about to expire on that 30-second boost. And then if you want, you can press it again right away and just keep going.
I found that we haven't tested on the flats. I think there's like maybe a 3-second interchange, but it's immediate.
Pretty close.
Like,
So yeah, those are the 3 power modes. And I would say that a lot of the guys spent their time riding it either in trail, just because we wanted to stay together as a group for the most part. But the auto mode is insanely powerful. And then when you go above the auto mode, like you're just kind of holding on.
It's hilarious.
Like, yeah, you're riding by yourself.
Hilarious. For a first bike from Amflow or DJI, like it's a really good package. Like, there has a lot of really good ride characteristics, a lot of familiar ride characteristics. Like, we've been talking back and forth a bunch. I own a Stumpy Evo, and it has a very similar feel that Stumpy Evo has. I would say maybe a little bit less aggressive than that bike in certain terms. Yep. But the general feel, so if you've ridden that bike, and it's a really popular bike, I would say it's closely resembles that in terms of ride characteristics and feel. It is a Category 4 frame, so it's insanely impressive what you're able to push this thing through. I mean, you can haul yourself up to the top of a mountain and ride some legit trail down.
Yeah, I found that while I agree, you know, and you can look at it and tell where the inspiration came from, right? I don't think they were shy or trying to hide that.
Yep.
This bike is a little bit flexy. You'll notice that some of the parts on here aren't exactly what is spec'd on the bike. You know, namely, we've changed the stem and the handlebar, and that was a big help we found. We've played around with, you know, wheel combinations. It is a full 29 right now. You can also run it with a mixed wheel setup, which could probably increase some stiffness out back and make it, I was gonna say even more fun and playful, but God, I don't know if it gets much more fun and playful.
Me, when I was riding it, I didn't find the back flexing to be the issue, and maybe that was transitioning to the front. But when you're loading into corners, it kind of gives you a low tire pressure feel when you're really loading up. I'm only 170 pounds.
Right.
You know, we get Robert on this thing, and it's going to be exaggerated what that frame feel translates on the trail.
Sure.
And that did cause some kind of curious moments and maybe some tentativeness. But as the day went on and spent more time on it, you kind of get used to that, and you're like, okay, I'm expecting it to do this, and you can ride accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, you know, we had 6 different test riders involved in this shootout. You'll see them throughout the series. I think Travis is our heaviest tester. And, you know, if I picture like our UK guy, Robert, who's 220 pounds, like I could imagine him saying this thing's too flexy for him. He's an absolute shredder and 220 pounds.
And
so
loads corners.
He loads corners up. You know, obviously we've done a fair amount of riding, but it's late summer. Its conditions are loose and dry. So that compliance or flex is really aiding in the bike's traction and line holding abilities. Like I found that like I'm able to like push in and like pump stuff and hold a line so well, even in these conditions, where some of the other bikes might be wanting to push or drift or kind of stay on top. And so there are pros and cons. And I think depending on the type of rider you are, how much weight you have, and the region, right? How wet or dry or, you know, tacky and sticky your trails are. Like if you're regularly riding blue grooved flow trails with berms, you're going to feel this flex more than someone in Phoenix, right? Where you're always searching for traction.
That's going to feel great down there.
Absolutely.
And, you know, as far as the bike itself goes, like the geo that this bike offers is right in line with many of the bikes out there. You have a 475 mil reach, 445 mil chain stays, 64.5-degree head tube angle. It's all familiar. And so you get on it and it's a very familiar feel, and that translates to your confidence on the trail. And then when you pedal out of corners, it is insane. Like you can almost change your riding characteristics, let's just keep it in, you know, trail or turbo, not in that boost mode. You're not really gonna be hitting that out of corners as often, but you can come in slower, get your line perfect, and then rip out. And that, to me, being someone that overcooks into corners, like, okay, cool, I can come in a little slower and know that that exit speed for the drop or the gap I want to hit after was really easy to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of taking it a little step further, I did find that there was a limit on how hard this bike could be pushed. And when you get to that limit, it gets a little scary. So, you know, granted, it's got a 36 fork up front. The frame we talked about is a little flexy. And the suspension, while it is very smooth and supple, which are things I like, there are some moments where you can come into something way too hot and it gets steep, and then there's a hard corner, and all of a sudden, like, the front end's diving and things are starting to twist and you're trying to go that way, and you're like, I kind of feel like the bike's still wanting to go this way.
Totally.
And, you know, that does not happen a lot. And I would say that probably is only going to be felt by like either really heavy riders or like very aggressive riders that are pushing hard into steep, chunky terrain. If you're just plowing over rough, chunky stuff and there's like not a lot of very steep, like catch berm type corners, like that's where I really noticed it, is like you're coming off of steep, heavy compressions and there's like a compression, like catch berm where everything's loading into that. That's where I was noticing it happen the most.
And it happens at the end of the corner.
Right. Yeah. So, you know, again, it's on the extreme of what you would want to ride a 150, 160 bike for.
Totally.
But I would say for like a general do-it-all trail to all mountain, you know, all mountain bike, dude, this, I mean, especially for a first attempt, dude, absolutely.
Yeah, there's not a ton of drawbacks that I found in this bike. It doesn't have, you know, as you talked about, oh, what's the weird thing, right? It has kind of the one thing, but it's not fully encompassing of the ride quality that you can achieve out of that.
Yeah.
I had a weird moment where I kind of pushed the front, slipped down a little bit, went to get back up to ride, and the knock block had moved.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so like not riding a lot of bikes with knock blocks, I didn't think getting back on the bars wouldn't move and ended up tipping over. And so something like that, right? You might like that, you might not like that. I love the knock block when you're doing whips and you get that really nice feedback feel over scrub bumps and stuff.
Yeah, the knock block is nice. I don't know that it's necessary or needed because, you know, a lot of these bikes you've got clearance over the top tube, but yeah, nevertheless, that is a problem. And it happened, but only once in, you know, a couple months of riding this bike pretty aggressively. So let's move into kind of some of the tech features. Like I talked about earlier, we've got a 2-inch touch screen, which is really awesome.
Full color, like beautiful display. Very well done, as you'd expect from DJI. You know, they have, it looks like a little action cam you have in there. And we were talking on the trail, like, oh, it'd be so cool if you could connect that to preview your angle of your GoPro or DJI, right?
Yeah, and it can give anything from just your speed and what gear selection you're in, all the way to...
The trail angle was really cool.
Yeah.
On the climb challenge.
Because there were some
cool.
like there were some downhill pitches as well as like some of the climb challenges.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I wonder what the like the grade of this hill is, and you could get the bike on there and see just how steep
30 degrees
stuff
was
is.
the steepest one we climbed up on.
It's like 30 degrees. 27.
You've got dual controllers, which is a little different, whereas like most bikes just have, you know, the power selector on one side, but you now have a power selector on one side and then like a screen toggle on the other. So if you don't want to be using the touchscreen component, you can be going through information scrolls.
Totally, and you can run this without any controllers on the bars too, which like for me, if it was my bike, I would love to run it with no controllers. Yeah, getting into the boost mode is a little harder, but everyday riding, we're with a big group of guys here, like we're trying to one-up each other, and it's fun to hit that boost going up some of the climbs. But
I would leave them. They're wireless. They're, you know, there's no extra cables for it. I mean, to me, I would leave them. They don't bother me at all, and they're pretty neat and easy to feel. So other things that I really like is the charge port cover. That is a pretty neat feature, how clean and well they've done that. I like that little protector flap kind of over that the back of the seat tube and the chain stays where that comes together. So biggest takeaways, strengths and weakness.
Motor for sure stands out as the biggest strength of this bike.
16.
It's very impressive, and I'm really excited to see where they can go from here. I mean, right off the bat, they did a great job. Flow trails to like light medium chunk, totally doable. You can outride it. You have to remember you are on a 150 rear, so it is easy to override, but it eggs you to go faster. Changes direction well. You know, we talked about the loading in the corners. That is, you know, a potential downside. But yeah, man, it's just kind of great everywhere. Like none of the trails we rode, I was like, oh, I don't want to be on that bike.
Yeah.
There are bikes in tests.
Okay.
It's like, okay, like I don't want to necessarily ride that bike here.
Sure.
There wasn't really a zone that I found that I didn't want to be on this bike.
Okay. So for me, it's impossible to talk about this bike without talking about the drive unit. And of course the battery, the range out of it,
forget that it has
and
a big
how
battery.
small it is in there, right? I mean, the fact that you've got 800 watts battery range, and you've got the most powerful motor by far. Like I've ridden, just to kind of compare it to a Bosch race drive unit on a full power e-bike. Like I've done races, you know, back home on our trails with a Bosch race equipped bike, and this bike leaves that Bosch race motor in the dust. So yeah, that's established. Moving into the bike itself, because I've long been a proponent of, I would rather have a bike with some people might say is a lesser or not as good drive unit for the sake of having a better mountain bike, right?
Sure.
Like any motor is going to get me up the hill fine. I want a bike that's going to ride down the hill better. This bike rides down the hill really well too, right? So yes, we talked about it can be overridden, but like when you get on this thing, it feels and rides so light. It's so springy.
Yep.
You know, I like a bike that's really soft and supple, you know, off the top, but can still handle some progression and ramp. I think this bike does that pretty well. I like a bike that kind of like pops and plays over stuff. And like when we got onto Chinkapin, which is like one of the like a blue flow trail, I could have felt like I was so tired and asleep, right? I mean, it's been a long week of testing here and filming, and it's like 3 corners in, I could have like been taking a nap at the top of the hill saying like, I can't ride anymore. And all of a sudden I'm like hooting and hollering on this bike, like I need more speed, right? And I'm just pumping and gapping and slamming the back end into turns. And it's like a main line of adrenaline, dude.
Totally.
Like, you got to get on it.
And this is also like, you know, for reference, when we're out here testing, we're swapping bikes all the time. We don't really always have the perfect suspension setup. So we try and get air pressures as close as we can, ride a little bit, change it up. And I think the more time you can spend on this on your home trails, playing with volume reducers and compression, you can really get it in and start egging that ride characteristic deeper into like the gnarlier stuff.
Yeah. So there you have it, folks. The Amflow equipped with the DJI Avinox. It's got a great app, great user interface, and insane speed and power, really good range. And I think it is a very serious contender for those of you guys that are looking for anything but the most extreme enduro e-bike. Yeah, thank you guys very much. Again, don't forget there will be 10 more bikes going up to battle against the Amflow in this eBike Lite shootout series. So make sure you subscribe, stay tuned, and thanks again to Outdoor Research, Ride Concepts, Schwalbe Tires, and the Running Y Resort here in Klamath Falls.